Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Mosi Thurlow scale,
or MOTS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Lost Signals Film and TV. And as we are gearing up for our annual MOTS-O-Ween extravaganza, we are covering the new Halloween 2018 tonight. Not technically part of the extravaganza, but sort of the precursor, if you will. I, of course, remain Scott Thurlow, here tonight with Rich Perry.
What's up?
Stephen Amosi.
Hey, yeah.
And Chris Morgan.
Happy Halloween.
Yes, and Steve-O, I believe you have the logline for this new iteration of Halloween?
Yeah, this is all about Loomis and Noomis. Loomis being Laurie Loomis, and Noomis being the new Loomis.
Indeed. Yeah, it works pretty well. I like the rhyme there as well. So let's go on. Rich, tell us about the plot of Halloween 2018.
Michael is back. He's trying to get revenge on his only escapee, Laurie Strode. But she's been waiting for him and has spent those 40 years preparing for this eventual fight. And, yeah, lots of people die, and...
Michael Myers is it up, pretty much.
Yeah. And it's a fun time for the family.
And then they trap him, and they get Myers.
Yeah.
They fix the cable and kill Myers. I mean, ostensibly.
Or do they?
Yeah,
or do they?
But of course they don't. That's the spoiler. They never do.
Well, you don't see his body, of course. But so this one is supposed to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, since you're the working Halloween expert at this point, because Ian Manzur's not here for this one, but he'll be on for 4. Regardless, though, this one is supposed to be a direct, 40 years later from the very first Halloween, yes?
Yeah, I have to, Beth and I were talking about this today, whether or not the whole thing about Laurie being his brother was introduced in Halloween 2, or if it was just in the book or whatever. But as far as I know, this movie is ignoring everything from the original Halloween to that.
Right, so it's like a sequel in quotes, but only taking the first one as canon.
It's destroying canon.
Sure, just wanted to be clear about that, and anyone out there who's unclear of the timeline, because there's 30 Halloweens or whatever.
It was also like H2O, which ignored 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 3 different timelines.
Double reverse ignoring, yeah.
This is a very, intense version of Back to the Future.
I suppose.
We need the doctor to...
So is it like Loomis going back in time and changing events?
Yeah. Loomis as Doc Brown would be amazing, but they should make that kind of Halloween crossover. However, for this one, I'm going to go into the scores. I'm looking at a very solid 2. I could even be convinced of a 3. I think they did a good job, and maybe a lot of it will be why I think it held up will be scattered through other questions, for example, style and dialogue, perhaps a bit here and there. But all I'm saying is I think they did a solid job of paying tribute to the original and doing a good 40 years later follow-up. So I was pretty invested throughout, not riveted or anything, but I think it kept itself up well enough, and it was short enough as well. It didn't feel like it was 2 hours. I think it was probably a little less even. I didn't look at the running time, but regardless, I'm looking at a very solid 2 just because here's the thing, right? You said this before, and I'll have to say it again here. The plot of Halloween is always Michael Myers escapes, does his murders, and then is quote-unquote defeated or run off or whatever, right? And this one is no different. It's just that it takes into account the fact that Laurie's been preparing for this for 40 years. So I'll open it up. What do you guys think about it?
Okay, I can say that. One of the things I was going into this wondering, I'm okay, the first thing you're going to have to do is suspend your disbelief that 40 years later on a Halloween, they're going to transform again. But knowing that the doctor kind of engineered it, makes a lot of sense. So they took care of that loophole.
That's a good point, I guess.
That earned credit for me. The other thing I loved was the subversion of Laurie Strode being a Linda Hamilton type badass. You expected her to come out and be yeah. And she was fucking terrified. She's been waiting her whole life to do this when the moment came. But it really...
A lot of nuance to it, yeah.
It really humanized her.
At least to her character.
She was obsessed enough so you believe that people would... She rode that balance. She was never over the top so you could believe where people had wandered, keep her at an arm's length because she was crazy. But there was so much humanity into her, they could not dismiss her. And they always held out hope. Even her daughter, who would always say it seemed like she gave up hope on her, never really did. I thought Laurie was very human. I thought all these characters were very human. I thought taking care of the plot hole that coincidentally 40 years later
Sure.
they'd be transferring him.
Like I'm saying, it's always part of the framework of a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Michael Myers escapes the day before Halloween and
Yeah,
goes
why
on
do
his
they
rampage.
always try to transfer him on Halloween?
Yeah.
It's just a running thing. Like,
Well,
to me,
no,
like
no, the first Halloween he escaped.
Oh yeah, that's right.
yes, but I'm saying like to me like that's sort of a nod, like an homage again to the original like framework and devices that they've always used. So
And I love the way it began, where they have the interviewer, podcasters, guys, with the doctor. They go see Michael Myers in that square, and that one of the podcasters trying to torment him. He takes the mask out, and he's like, Michael, Michael. And then they crescendo on it, and bam, cuts, and Halloween pops up, and and it really
it was a nice
just,
cold open.
It was
Sure.
It was just from beginning to end. This thing never lost my attention. In fact, my brain couldn't process it fast enough. I really wanted it to be like the third time.
Halloween's moving too fast for Chris Morgan, everybody.
No, but, it was really good. I was actually the first time in a long time went to see a horror movie, went to see a slasher movie, and was actually didn't know what was going to happen. I really wasn't convinced that Laurie was going to survive. And when Michael put his hand through the door and was smashing her against the door, I'm like, that would be cool and also really irritating if he killed her right here and now.
I was thinking the same exact thing, actually.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, she might fucking die right now because,
Yeah, they got you.
at this point, Jamie Lee Curtis has been the kind of the face of Halloween, other than the mask, for the last 40 years or whatever.
Sure.
More than 40 years, right? Well, however long it's
I think
been.
it came out in 78, so it's been
Yeah, it's
exactly
been 40 years, exactly.
So, the last 40 years. And, like, that would have been a really interesting choice. I wouldn't have hated it if they had just killed her right there. I think I kind of liked the ending that they had for it better, but that would have been they would have really like put the screws to like a new generation of people trying to fight Michael Myers. In that case, like I assume there's going to be a sequel to this, but
God, I hope not.
Anyway.
I hope not either.
Well, maybe depending on how well it does, but even so,
No, even without that, I just don't want it to be a sequel.
Right.
This,
No,
fair
this
enough.
would be a perfect ending.
Exactly.
I mean, I agree with you. It was a
it's
solid ending.
Halloween. This series, like
Well, they
there
could do-
are
they
like
could do-
12 Halloween movies. They're always going to make a sequel.
But they could do sequels to have other Halloween stories. It doesn't have to be Michael
They
Myers.
tried that with Season of the Witch, and we found it didn't really work.
We see what-
you can remake that.
Have like a copycat killer then.
Let Danielle
Actually,
and I
no.
wait that movie. We'll remake.
Yeah, you saw what happened when they did that in Saw. Anyway,
We'll rewrite it later on, but
I did like the plot of this. There were a couple loose ends which may drop it down to a 2 for me.
like what? Can you name anything
The
specific?
boyfriend not showing up again
Okay.
was a big one for me. Like,
All right.
I don't understand why you would set him up and then not pay that character off.
And ship him on a bus, essentially, sure.
Yeah, but
And that-
I was okay with that. It's just that I wanted him to die so badly. But
I didn't really care whether he lived or died. It was
wanted some closure
It was a setup
either way.
without a payoff. And like in terms of like a really tight, perfect
I think the
plot,
only
you
set-
can't do that.
I think the only setup it was for was to get rid of her phone.
yeah,
I think that's all it was.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
ridiculous.
exactly right.
You don't need
That's
to have a whole
exactly right.
character to do that, right? Like,
Sure.
there's no reason to have an entire
But
character
was
who
he
has
a whole
all kinds of like characterization to
Okay.
do that.
but was he a whole character?
Well, we'll get to that
Yes.
later on,
Okay.
I suppose.
Is the answer?
But what are you guys looking at for scores
well,
for plot?
two more things.
Okay.
Rich noticed it
7
too.
more things.
When Michael threw her out, she fell out the window, and he looked back again, and she.
Yeah, that was a subversion, of course, because that's what he does all the time.
Rich is like, wow, she Michael Myers did.
Yeah, Michael Myers got Michael Myers by Laurie Strode for sure, and I did notice that, and I
Yeah.
liked it.
Actually,
What I love is like the double take that he did. Where he's just like, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
This is what this feels like.
But again, they
Got
kind of
Batman.
humanized him a bit too.
In
That
my-
was-
in my theater, a guy who was sitting next to me, who was talking the entire movie, was annoying as shit, did make a hilarious comment when that happened. He was like, "Yo, she pulled a him."
Fair enough.
And I do like the whole Judy Greer thing that she too was like prepared for this, but not prepared for this. And at the end where they trapped him, it's just like she tells her daughter, she's like, "No, honey, it's not a cage, it's a trap. Or it's not a shelter, it's a trap."
Yes.
I'm giving this a very, very, very solid 3. I
Okay.
loved it from beginning to end. Ask Steve-O when I like literally jumped out of the.
He did. He came cartwheeling out of the theater.
Yeah.
Not,
Okay.
not cartwheeling.
Literally
No,
cartwheeling.
he was about to if he could cartwheel.
Sure.
If Chris could cartwheel 30 years ago, he would have been cartwheeling out of this theater.
I have
All
never
right.
done a cartwheel in my life.
All right. Doesn't matter.
No, 30 years ago he would have done a round off.
Maybe. But he's giving it a 3 instead of a cartwheel.
I am I'm gonna. I did really like this from start to finish, but there are a couple loose ends that I don't want to forgive because it was so good. It didn't deserve to have those loose ends. So I'm gonna give it a 2.
All right. What do you think, Rich?
I'm going to give it a solid 3.
All right. Yeah, I'm sticking with a very strong 2, just not quite enough for a 3. Maybe nitpicks here and there, like not the one you said, Steve-O, but like I just don't think it deserves a full 3, but it's a very strong 2 is all I'm saying. So, and I could almost be convinced, but I think at this point it's solid as hell for what it is, but just not quite enough over the line for me.
What's keeping you from making it?
Like, I guess a lot of it goes to like style. Like things like about it are the callbacks, or like again, the Laurie Strode getting Michael Myers or doing a Michael Myers to Michael Myers. Like that was cool. But there's other things like like the boyfriend thing, and some of the stuff just didn't quite held together. I think it could have been like fleshed out a little bit more, and I'll probably go into that like later on in themes and also in secondary in a second. But overall, like I said, it's super strong, just not quite enough for a 3. So I was like sort of wavering a bit, but I think at this point I'm going to stick with a 3. Maybe just becoming channeling old Ian Manzer a bit, just holding it to a little harsher light. But still, it was damn solid overall and was well done for a Halloween movie, for the new one. Newest iteration, if you will. All right, well, either way, let's move on to themes. That'll be you, Stephen Amosi.
You can always go home again? No, like... This, the Halloween movies, I like that they touch on, like, the kind of what is evil and, like, what the intention of, like, what makes a true villain or, like, a true evil person. Like, Michael Myers, it's so weird that they'll never, like, you can't, at this point in the series, ever give him redemption.
You can't demystify him. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's... Yeah, exactly. He's basically a fucking murder god. But that lets the other characters play off of it and lets them explore about themselves, like the way that they interact with something that, like, in the face of, like, pure evil, right?
Right.
Like, which is a thing that I, like, to me, doesn't really actually fucking exist. But,
within the confines of
in terms of, like, Michael, he just doesn't talk. He's like a pure fucking unkillable murder machine.
He's a force of nature.
And, like, when you encounter something like that, how do you, or something you perceive as that, how do you react to it? And, like, you get a lot of, like, different, like, some people try to stand up to him and get fucking murdered, and some people try to run away and get murdered.
Which is almost
like, you know, so, like, I don't know. I think that's an interesting thing that's explored through all these movies. And this one talks a lot about family, actually, which is an interesting dynamic. Like, growing up as a child of a trauma survivor is a really interesting thing that they touch on, and they actually, like, talk a little bit at length about. They delve a
bit more into it. I was going to say that, yeah.
Whereas a couple movies that we've seen lately, I feel
bring something up and then never do it.
Yeah, exactly. Have not gone into the themes that this one really goes into, like, what it's like for Judy Greer's character, Karen, to deal with having her mother be just completely traumatized. And then it deals with her daughter, Karen's daughter, Allison, having to deal with having
the legacy
a family history of trauma and not understanding it. And then finally, like, coming to terms with it when she confronts the monster in their closet, you know? So I think that's interesting. I maybe have one other one, but I'll let you guys talk, and if you don't bring it up, I'll all
right. Yeah, like, you brought up the two that I thought were, like, more obvious and handled pretty well, like being a survivor of, like, being a victim of some kind of terrible tragedy, and then how does it affect you? They even bring that up specifically in the film itself. I believe that doctor, like, the new Loomis, as you mentioned, can't remember his character name, but the guy who took over for Loomis, if you recall, he, like you said, Chris, he orchestrates basically Myers' escape in order to observe him. He wants to observe evil in the wild, like, more or less, right?
Well,
and
go on.
And he also brings up the fact that, like, that he thinks, he said something, I can't remember the fucking line, but
that what's keeping them both alive.
Yes, that's it.
Their hatred for each other.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting thing to, like, throw in there, and again, they threw it in but didn't just forget about it. Like, he has a couple of speeches when he's, like, discussing that, especially when he literally kills a cop, that is the doctor, to save Michael, because he wants to keep him alive and see what happens when he's confronted, when he brings him to Laurie and they're confronted with each other.
Big mistake.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting angle, and again, they didn't, like, forget about it. They did build enough into it there. And like the family thing too, like, you know, her passing her down, her sort of paranoia because of what happened to her and how it affects her daughter and her granddaughter and their relationship to each other and everyone else. So I thought that was all pretty fucking solid. So, you guys got anything else?
To the doctor, one of the things I said the theme was post-traumatic. One of the themes was post-traumatic stress. Sure. But the doctor brought up an interesting point that the aggressor and the victim could also have a certain amount of post-traumatic stress. I mean, he didn't know what he unleashed. He did not understand him the way Loomis did. And I thought that was really interesting.
He's studying Michael Myers for science, and then it all backfires.
So he wanted to know what he felt. And I loved the way, in a lot of ways, they humanized Michael.
To an extent, yeah.
Especially at the end.
Yeah, and I like the way that he actually got part of his hand blown off.
Yep.
Like he wasn't this invincible thing, like he could be damaged.
Sure.
Plus, if you notice, he's blind in his left eye from when he got stabbed with the coat hanger.
Yes, that's right.
I did not notice that. That's a really nice touch. Shit, good call.
And he was like, there was a real feeling of him being hunted after Laurie disappears.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, when she like is gone from the ground, like you just start seeing things from like these like weird angles.
Yeah,
and it like makes Michael feel like super out of place and like just vulnerable for like maybe the first time ever like in the series.
If you notice like his body language too, like first when she disappears, then when Karen disappears from the room and he like doesn't notice the counter move at first.
Right.
And then he's like stepping around like trying to find him.
And it really focuses on his like uncertainty in that situation, which you never see from him. He's always like, when you see him, it's from another character's point of view, and he's like fucking hunting you.
He's terminating you.
Exactly, which is why like, and then Karen figured out that like the only way he was actually going to make a move is if he felt like he was in control again. Just start baiting him.
Yeah, which was a nicer version too. I like that little scene. Yeah,
and even the way he like looked up at them when she's, you know, it's a trap, and he's like sitting there, he's not doing anything, and Laurie's like, "Goodbye, Michael," and he's being incinerated, or maybe not. But I like the way he's just
his
looking
trap is set afire.
Yeah, but he's kind of in a weird way with just his body language, even with the mask. It's kind of like this childish, pathetic resolve in a way. I mean, you could see that he's still like this weird, like he's still a child in a way that doesn't know how to do. I thought, I don't know. I guess we're gonna move on to antagonists. I don't want to.
Well, I have my one final thing.
Okay.
So like another one that I really wanted to mention was kind of like how generations view like evil, we'll say, or whatever, and how the separation from it really affects them. There's a great scene in the beginning of this movie when Dave is like right before he blows up a pumpkin, where he's like talking to them, and he's like, "What's the big deal? He killed 5 people 40 years ago. Like, who cares?" And she's
40 years ago.
What's that?
You just said 4.
I said 40.
All right. Sorry.
It was a soft.
My bad.
Sorry. It was a soft
Go on, but you're right. I remember that scene, and continue.
And he's kind of like talking about it and says, "What's the big deal? It was 5 people. You know how shitty the world is now." And somebody says to him, "Yo, her grandmother almost got killed," and he was like, "Yeah, but she didn't." You know, like, and like, I know it's kind of like a throwaway like conversation that always happens in these movies, but I thought this one was kind of deeper than you usually get in a horror
movie. You're right.
movie.
I did notice that scene, and I agreed.
And I think that's a really good, like, very quick discussion about the separation that you get, especially like for younger generations, that they get from like these traumas that their parents have faced. You know, and there's a lot of like throughout history, there's a lot of like parallels for that type of conversation happening.
And one of the things that I thought was interesting, and in a way building on your point, like, you know, the world's full of good people and so forth, that when Laurie says to her daughter, you know, "I'm sorry I raised you the way I did." Like, it's kind of like she didn't give her daughter a chance. In a way. I mean, I didn't realize that until you were just saying that. I'm like, yeah, I don't remember if Laurie was always afraid, like, do you know what the world is like out there? And she told her granddaughter to go to Mexico or something, not to go to school. And no, I thought it was interesting that Lori, when she thought this was the end, she put her daughter and granddaughter in there. She goes, "I'm sorry the way I raised you," which
the familiar angle I thought was pretty like well dealt, well handled and dealt with throughout.
Yeah,
through the characters for sure.
One's all around for
We'll
that.
get to yeah.
One's all
for
around.
themes, my friends. All right. Well, Chris, yes, go on with antagonist.
Who's
All
the
right.
antagonist in this?
actually, it's really funny. It's kind of the doctor in a way because he let the.
I'm liking that angle.
Get
Yeah.
the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
To an extent.
Well, because he was in a way the catalyst, he set up the whole situation. I mean, he got these two numbnut podcasters who obviously, when they went to Lori's, obviously they did not know how to handle anything because they basically asked Lori something really stupid and she kicked him out of the house, and took her $3,000, which was awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, and the shitty caretaker was the antagonist in the first Halloween.
No. Anyway, no, but he orchestrated it and he kind of let the I don't know the analogy, whatever out of the box.
He wound up the thing and
They
then
let the shape out of the box?
He let the shape out of the box.
Exactly.
But Michael that was the other thing that really made him scary because he was still an unstoppable force, but he was very human. Like they started off showing part of his face.
That gray beard.
Sure.
That
Yeah, I
great-
did like the fact that they
Yeah.
showed him like, obviously they showed him like a half profile, like 3/4,
Yeah.
like from behind. But he was obviously graying and older, so I thought it was a nice
Well, he's
touch.
supposed to be 61 in this movie.
Yeah.
Is that the official thing?
Yeah.
Well, he's still fucking a badass then for that, for being supposed to be being that age.
And having lost an eye, I mean, Michael wasn't just this nameless force of nature. They gave him,
Sure, they gave him more like humanity, like you said, than ever before.
yeah, and I
So-
think I covered a lot of it because I'm going to count the Doctor and Michael as part of one unit.
Mm.
I mean, I like the Doctor as a catalyst force and all, but Michael Myers has just appeared behind us. Jesus Christ!
There's Michael Myers.
As
has made
as we
an
speak of
appearance.
him, and he comes to kill us. But yeah, for those of you listening, Ian just showed up and sort of sold us back in the studio.
I think they can see it through the camera.
I mean,
Well, if you're listening
On
to it.
audio.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
those of us without who can't. Anyway, but
No.
yeah, like I do like you said, like the
Those of us
Doctor
who
being
do
a
without.
catalyst is a good part, but I don't know if that's good enough for him to be the antagonist. Obviously, it's Michael Myers, and
Right.
he's effective as he's always been. But as you said, adding a layer of somewhat vulnerability, and like we said with the speeches, maybe that'll go in the dialogue with the Doctor's exchanges with again the nature of evil and how Michael's affected by what happened to him, by what he did, and so forth. So yeah, I think it's all solid there, and I mean it's hard to like fuck up Michael Myers like as the villain, really.
No, it's easy to fuck up Michael
I
Myers,
don't know,
as, we,
but, like-
as we will discuss.
Well, maybe, but I'm just saying, like here, I think they did
Go
a
to
good
the
job.
season finale, but go on. I'm sorry, Scott.
Yeah, you don't have him in the movie in 3.
Well,
So
yeah,
you
but
fuck
I think even in 4, like I don't want to compare this one to 4, but it doesn't matter. I still think he's effective in all of them that he appears in, and especially so in this one because of the layer of humanity that, like you said, sort of adds a dimension to the whole dynamic. And
Agree.
That's all I
I think
gotta say.
I like him. I like him as much or more than ever because there is that little moment of like you see a little moment of indecision from Michael and like it makes him a little bit even scarier because
yeah, somehow
you can kind of identify
yeah.
with this fucking horrible
Agreed.
monster.
That's a good point.
And it's gonna be a one for me. I don't have much more to say. Michael Myers is Michael Myers.
Yep.
There you go. He wins.
Michael Myers is
He wins
Michael
at one.
as Michael Myers does.
Yeah.
Rich, one as well.
True. I liked his I liked his sense of focus in this movie.
Mm.
Like all those oneers and tracking shots that they did
Yeah,
of him just like fucking murdering everybody on the street
Mm-hmm.
that he came across is just
yeah, it's fucking solid.
it's the most dangerous I've seen him in any movie.
Yeah. So that's a 1 from you, it seems. Yep. So I'll go on to protagonist. So, like, how should we call it, right? Laurie, certainly, to an extent. Like, maybe it's the 3 generations of women in the family, right? Like, all of them.
Three generations of Strode.
Yeah. The 3 Strodes, if
The
you
3
will.
Strodes.
3 Strodes and a dude. And then the husband. But, no, like, I think they're
No.
all really solid. Like, Jamie Lee has been and still is, like, pretty awesome at being like the horror heroine, if you will.
Mhm.
I think they updated it for the modern times to an extent where she has like her own little compound, like stashes guns and all this stuff. Like, but then again, that alienates her from her family because of the way she raised Karen, played by Judy Greer, her daughter.
Yeah.
I thought was pretty solid. She might be like, quote unquote, the weakest one in the in the generations, but I think she was still solid enough, especially at the end they gave her a bunch to do, and she was also effective in helping to trap and, again, quote unquote, kill Michael.
Mhm.
And then Allison, the granddaughter, I thought she was damn solid too. Like, she was sort of, again, in a parallel to the original, like the new Laurie, where she was like pretty much, she was with it. Like, she had a lot to her. You got to spend a bit of time with her in her daily life to know who she was, and then it fleshed it out as like she goes to dinner with her parents, and then Laurie shows up, her grandmother, and the strained relationship there sort of comes out. So I think
she spent a lot of time like not being hunted by Michael.
yeah, like it's
Like,
She spent a lot of time
Which I
running
kinda
through
liked,
woods,
Rich,
not
like,
being hunted
yeah.
by Michael.
like I kind of like the fact that he
feel
didn't
like
go
Michael
straight
didn't give
for
a
her.
shit for her.
No,
about
at
her.
all.
Like he was trapped in the back of a car with her. He murdered somebody else and like went out the front of the car.
Yeah,
Well, the thing
and then
is-
what bothered me is instead of hopping in the car and driving off, she just runs in the woods.
yeah. I did notice
like,
that.
"Fuck it,
I was
gotta
like,
go
that was
get
one
lost."
that was one dumb horror move for sure.
agreed.
I noticed that, but she did run to the house, I guess. But still,
Eventually, she
Yeah.
didn't know her way around
that's
there.
true. Like I totally thought to myself, I'm like, why the hell would you run into the woods?
She
Yeah.
almost just
But-
gave up once she made it to the mannequin field.
Yeah, kind of.
What was interesting though is Judy Greer kind of helped finish painting the picture, but
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, in the first movie, Donald Pleasance was like the Cassandra. In this movie,
Laurie
was kind of like that
true.
because she, as you said, she spent a lot of more time warning people and being the
And waving
people
that
that
revolver.
people would
Yeah, she's the new Loomis,
yeah, she would. But what was I gonna
despite
say?
the other new Loomis.
Who she even
Who she
refers
calls
to
out
as New Loomis. Yes.
Yeah, so I was gonna say I think all three form a really good protagonist.
Yeah, I think they're about 1/3 each, and altogether, like
Yeah.
collectively, I'm
From
gonna give
the
them
head.
all
Yeah.
a strong one.
I got a little to say about
Yeah.
well, I already said my piece about Allison.
Por favor.
Say it.
So
Go on.
Laurie I loved because despite all of the work that she put into it, as anybody who is refaced with their trauma, like she falters. Like she has
Sure.
that moment at dinner, like after she goes, she's like, "Oh, I wanted to kill him, but I couldn't go through with it."
Mhm.
Then she breaks down, like crying because she doesn't know if she can let go of this. And then it's all, and when it finally happens, she just, at first, it seems like she's not ready, and then just like hunkers down and like finds that strength to finish it. And then
Yeah, she goes through a whole bunch of.
yeah, and I love that Karen the whole movie. I was hoping that she would come through in the end, and she did. Or like after being faced with like her like all of what her mom was training her for,
Yeah.
she's just finally just like, all right, I'm now the Robin to your Batman again.
Yeah.
Finds her
finds a
monogram
rifle.
gun.
Yeah.
Yep. Finds her in her training, and from what she was taught, and helps
finds her rifle.
Yeah.
exactly, and helps to take
It's
him
really it's kind of hoping for a fist fight between her and Michael, but
out. Were you hoping for that?
Was she
I was
punching the heavy
yeah.
bag?
When she was punching the heavy bag, I was just like, all right, she's gonna fuck somebody up.
all
Like,
right,
she's
all
gonna
right.
throw some
Stuns
hands.
Michael.
Yeah, just like hits him with a right hook. And
Man,
just, like,
no one has ever stunned Michael Myers with a right hook.
blinds his other eye.
But anyway, does that mean you're giving him a 1 though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1 for Laurie. The strongest.
Sure, but
I liked Allison. I think more than the most of you guys.
yeah,
I liked Allison.
I thought she was fine.
I probably liked her the least, but
I
not that
liked
she
her
was
whole
bad.
like Clyde get up throughout most of this
Yeah,
movie, which
okay.
was
Yeah,
that was cool.
enjoyable. Like
Sure.
I thought she was
She was
Standard-
solid
Actually,
enough.
she was a standard
I-
like tough chick teenager, but like had some nuance to her,
Yeah,
which was
exactly.
nice.
I
and, like,
loved her relationship with Laurie. Like, just in spite of the fact that her mom, like, obviously wanted her to have nothing to do with
They're
it.
sort of
Yeah.
estranged,
She would
but
go behind her back,
Yeah.
yeah.
and you could tell that they've had more. They've had moments
other
like that.
incidents like
It's
this.
like
Yeah,
I
exactly.
feel like the writers did put some thought into what this family was like, and I appreciate that.
They
Yeah,
put
for
a
sure.
lot of thought into this movie.
yeah, and it's
so-
very believable, very well rounded.
I'm gonna give it a 1 for protagonist
Okay.
for all three of them. I didn't even mention Judy Greer's character Karen, but she was good too, especially at the end. Mostly at the end. I wasn't the biggest fan of her through most of the movie, but at the end I thought
She
she
sort
pulled
of
through and-
came through there.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I get being traumatized with being trained almost in the militia.
Yeah.
But come on, those are some life skills that like
They'll be useful
pay
in
off
general.
down
The
Yeah.
thing is, I get it. She was like literally abused as a child, but it was also very strange to see Kitty from Arrested Development in this role, like as kind of like off, not off-putting, but it
Change
threw
of
me
pace.
off at first.
Yes, sure.
So, but I warmed up to her. I thought she did a pretty good job, and by the end, I liked pretty much every character in this movie by the end of the movie or by when they died.
Yes, very nice.
Or because they died.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Rich, why don't you tell us, speaking of characters, about the secondary characters?
I liked a lot more of them than I thought I would.
I
Mm.
definitely agree with that.
I think there were like 3 that I hated, and only one of them didn't die. So, I mean, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
none of these guys were straw men. The people who died.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
like,
that's a
yeah.
fair point.
True. Like, they were all like 3-dimensional characters, and like they actually went out of their way to make these people like not just like faces
Not
that
like random, like...
Yeah.
yeah. Except for like, well, the 2 women in the beginning that were just like kind of hanging around in their houses.
Yeah, but again, that was like the
They were
classic,
like, they were
That
like
was
two-
like a
yeah,
reference
yeah.
to Halloween 2,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
For
they were
sure.
like
The
two-
first one.
They were the only 2
Absolutely.
sacrificial lambs. Like
Yeah.
they went out of their way to like have the one kid and his dad where he's just like all he wants to do is dance.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that kid.
Oh my God!
Like the
yeah.
hillbilly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dad and son would find like the bus crash where Myers escaped.
It's like, Dad, dancing's my thing now.
Yeah, like that-
we
yeah.
can go hunting
Yeah.
sometimes.
They didn't need to have that, but it was like nice that it
It
was
made
there.
it all the
was
sadder.
good. It was good.
Yeah.
Also, he killed it, or not killed, but he shot Numis.
Yeah, that's true.
The
True.
kid.
But yeah, like there
Rifled
was
his ass.
there was a whole bunch. Like again, like the Vicky.
Oh yeah,
Allison's-
Vicky
Allison's
and
best
her.
friend was babysitting.
And Dave.
Julian. The
And
kid.
Julian.
Julian's his name. Yeah,
Yeah,
those 2 I want.
that was a great.
I wanted a movie with just
exchange.
them.
Yep.
Spin-off movie. But no, like they were fine. Like, and again, the new Loomis. I don't remember again for this fucking character's name, but I thought he was pretty well done.
Sartain.
Sure, he was solid as hell. Because again, he has to live in the shadow of Donald Pleasant's portrayal of Loomis. But I
Yeah.
thought like they gave him enough. Like they made him different enough. He wasn't just like a carbon
I
copy.
just
of him.
wanted for once to have that character who turns out to be evil and like wanting to, I don't know, share something with the villain where he just like wants to share his
and
like
he sort of
yeah.
had that. Yeah.
yeah, and, like he has that, but at the same time like he got way too smug, like
Yeah.
way too quick. Like I
He
was
thought
hoping he was
yeah.
I was hoping he was smarter than that.
Nah,
that
he thought he was going to become Michael Myers'
Yeah.
buddy and just gets Myers like into the cop car, like face smashed essentially. So like that was all fine. Trying to think of any other ones. Like the husband was okay. He wasn't like the worst. He was
Ugh.
there.
I didn't hate him, but
He
I
was
didn't
there.
care that he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually probably the only character that I didn't care whether he lived or died.
Sure, they didn't flesh him out as much, but what was there was
He was a nice guy.
Acceptable.
I actually didn't want him to die.
well. There's one
Yeah.
more. I'm gonna
he was
leave-
he was an okay dude, but he was amazingly incompetent.
Yeah.
Sure. Well,
It's like, oh, that cop car just pulled up and it's not doing anything. Let me open up this door and go check without notifying anyone,
And they
having
kind of,
anybody come out and cover my back in case.
they kind of set up his incompetence at the beginning when he was setting the mousetraps.
Oh yeah,
that's
And
true.
it's just like you knew right away that this guy.
He's kind of a bumbling fool.
Yeah.
that's why
I
Karen
got
didn't-
peanut butter on my
that's-
penis.
Yeah, that's why Karen didn't give a shit. Which is like, where was his name?
Ray, I think.
Ray?
Sure.
It's like, where's Ray? And nobody said anything.
Doesn't matter. Anyway,
whatever.
Michael's here.
They find him at the end and then they burn him.
Yeah.
No, Lori found him and said nothing.
Yeah.
Well, there's one or two. Well, I'll leave, but I'm just saying collectively overall, like they were surprisingly well fleshed out. Especially the doctor. Probably he's like the standout for me, and even the sheriff is solid. But there's one or two others. Like I said, I'll let you guys talk about it. But I'm looking at a solid one.
I guess the podcast crew were cool.
No,
Yeah.
they were Nimrods, but I like the fact that they were killed.
Of course, I like because they were podcasters, but
Yeah, but they were killed pretty much right. They were killed sooner than I thought they would.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, they were.
I thought they were gonna get killed off maybe halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if they got killed off in that first scene. Like, that would have been interesting if they got murdered and that's how Michael gets out, like,
Meh.
the chaos that he creates.
would've been
That's what I said. I was
okay, I guess,
I
but-
honestly thought that once the credits rolled or whatever, or the intro finished, like I'm waiting for him to be cleaning off his hands.
Michael picking his teeth with their bones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I liked it because like they were sort of the gap. Like explains like how he got his mask back and like how he found like the grave and shit.
I just figured
Thought he was back.
I figured he'd just like make another one. Like I really didn't
Nah.
They were,
need the original to be handed back.
yeah,
So,
whatever.
But I wasn't like mad that
yeah.
that happened. That's all I'm saying. So
I'm going to give this a 1. I'm going to give a major shout out to Julian, the hilarious child, and Vicky in that scene was good. I'm going to also shout out Dave for getting fucking ragged on so hard by Julian, which was hilarious.
yeah.
Which was half the reason why he
especially
was
It was
especially
it was
you know
very
what
meta.
you know what I loved more? that he was willing to send Dave to his death in order to save Vicky.
Yeah. I wish he had been able to save Vicky. That's the real tragedy of this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1. I liked all these characters. I liked most of these supporting characters. We did not mention one of them.
Well, that's what I was leading in for you.
It's her friend that tries to kiss her or whatever. Like the kid.
And her current boyfriend, who is also a scumbag.
Oh yeah, DBB.
He should have died.
Cameron, I think was his name.
Yes. Like he was there.
Actually,
and then
before he tried to kiss her, or before that lead up to it, I thought that he might have been jealous of her dating him, and that he would have used that like.
Oh.
I was really hoping that they wouldn't resort to something like that in this movie, and then they did. And I was like, I'm a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
The script of Halloween.
Bit of a trip up, but sure. But overall, you're
other
saying...
than that, I think the supporting characters are really good, and I'm going to give them a 1.
All right, that's 1 for all around. And so, do you have any last thoughts there on that, Rich? All right, well, it's going to go on. It's going to be you anyway, Steve-O, with dialogue.
Dialogue. Strong. I liked...
Solid, sure.
I liked a lot of the banter. Was good. I thought that, and this probably has a lot to do with delivery, but everything that Laurie Strode said was awesome. Like,
yeah, it was intense.
She's got, like we said, 40 years as this character under her belt. She knows how to play Laurie Strode. Jamie Lee Curtis knows how to play Laurie Strode, and I really like the way that she took the character in her like old age, like ignoring the rest of all the other Halloween shit, and like taking what she did in the first one and going to like taking the script, obviously taking it to its logical conclusion, but her taking her performance to its logical conclusion was really cool. And the way that she delivered the dialogue really made me believe her performance more than I think anything else. Other than that, there's nothing like super memorable, but I think it's pretty strong as far as horror movies go. I think horror movies have shitty dialogue a lot of times, and this certainly does not fall into that category. So I'm gonna give it a 1.
The dialogue was good. It was very natural, but it would get I realized this when you were talking, Steve-O. I was gonna get a 1. But it's getting a strong 1 because this is a super exposition-heavy movie.
I was going to mention
about what you saw in Halloween and 40 years of what you didn't see.
Yeah.
And in a lot of the nonverbal stuff, which there's precedent for in these podcasts, to count as dialogue.
Sure, absolutely.
And the fact that Michael could convey so much without saying a word and behind a mask. And really, this film could have been.
Oh, he's another guy who's got 40 years of that character under his belt.
Yeah.
But the dialogue could have been super dry, and it was done.
Sure, they could have mishandled it, but they did not.
And so it's getting 1 for me, and that's all I have to say.
I agree. It's like a solidish 1, but yeah, like as you mentioned, the doctor I guess had to do a lot of the exposition, so I noticed that early on. But it didn't feel as exposition-y as it could have, so I'll definitely give it a lot of credit. It goes a long way on that front. Yeah, and everything else is totally natural, and everyone, like we just said, did a good job portraying the characters as written in the script and bringing them to life. So through the dialogue. So I'll probably give it a solid 1 as well.
Giving it a 1.
All right. Very nice. So let's move on to style. All right, Chris, that is you.
I loved it. I mean, there's really not much to say. I've got to give a shout out to John Carpenter, Cody Carpenter, and his godson, who I'm blocking, that we actually went to see last year. So it was really exciting that they did the soundtrack. They did a wonderful version of it. But the style of it, I'm going to give I just love the way the movie is put together, but I'm going to give a special prop to the nods and winks were integrated organically.
Yeah.
They never once really overtly winked at you. Like the cutting of the ham. Definitely.
It wasn't cheap or like, hey, remember this?
Unlike
again?
the Predator.
Yes, exactly. It's the opposite of the Predator shit.
Like, hey, look, here's the spear from Alien versus Predator. Yeah, fuck that movie. Anyway, no, it's the style of this movie is great. I thought it was really well directed. Again, I like the fact they didn't make Laurie a badass. I love the fact that everybody was human. Everybody had strength. This is going to sound so corny, but it's true. Strength from within as opposed to...
Sure.
It is definitely a show don't tell movie. I really did love the way it was shot. I thought it was... I don't know how many movies this guy directed. I meant to look it up. But it was really well done. It's getting a very strong one. From
Yeah,
me.
I don't have much more to add. You covered a lot of it. Like, of course, the soundtrack's iconic, so they did like sort of a redux, if you will, of it. And John Carpenter is John Carpenter and his son and so forth. Yeah, the shots were pretty great. They're, like you said, all the little homages and references to the originals were really well handled. Again, nicely integrated and without like being in your face about it. And I'll mention one here. I thought you were going to, but there was one little scene like when Vicky was putting Julian to bed. On their TV was a quick flash of a scene from Repo Man. So I was like, me personally, I was like, yeah, that was awesome. But like you said, everything else like perfectly solid and did a good job of translating it from the original one to now 40 years later. So
I think it's safe to say that like Scott and I know Repo Man is probably one of our favorite films.
Yeah.
It took every bit that for the last 24 hours till I saw you not to say, dude.
yeah, trust me, I noticed it 100% and it was awesome.
I knew you would.
So that's my take on style. What do you guys think?
Well, I agree with everything you guys said. Great cinematography. The soundtrack is terrific, as expected. I really liked. So I'm gonna just call it a couple things that I really liked from it. The reverse rotting pumpkin in the beginning was cool. Very
for
cool.
The credit,
Yes.
For the credits.
Yeah.
And can I just give super props to the trap basement and the drop doors?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Like
Good call.
whoever devised that as plot point, as like, you know, parts of the plot, and like came up with how to implement them was fucking awesome.
Yeah, fucking
That
solid
Laurie
for
had.
sure.
So, I mean, you should have seen this movie already if you're listening to this. But like the doors that dropped whenever she like cleared out a room, is the most brilliant idea ever. How has nobody thought about
It's
this in a
smart
horror
as
movie
shit.
before?
Yep.
Like
You really got
fantastic.
It's like she's had 40 years to become
Yeah.
an omniscient genre savvy
Yeah.
Yeah.
heroine.
Genre God.
It's fucking brilliant.
For sure. There's one other thing. Sound design was very solid. Maybe that's not quite part of the soundtrack, but it was just rock solid
Very
as well. And we mentioned this a lot, especially in horror films. Sound design goes a long way to selling a film, and this one was no exception. They did a good job on that front. So for all those reasons, I think we're all giving it a pretty solid one.
And Daniel A. Davies is the name of his godson. I could not say that.
Rich, got anything
I do.
else to say? Yep.
So I love the style of this movie, and especially how it was shot. Like it had a very like old school horror film feel, where like there were not quick cuts, they weren't they weren't over reliant on the gore, and a lot of the fear and like the danger from Michael was like mostly from like background shots.
Yeah, true.
Where, like you'd have like a sweeping shot and you just see him kind of doing his thing, like when he's beating that dude's face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you just see like his arm coming up like, over the. So like that's
awesome.
that's the throwback to Halloween 4.
Yep.
That scene, but like you don't get to actually see all the murder that happens in it, which is
for sure. That's a good point.
I love that.
I love the fact that there were no jump scares.
Especially having just seen
I thought
Halloween
Rich was
4.
going to say
dude.
that.
So did I.
Anyway,
Yeah.
go,
there
go
were
on.
jump scares.
There was like two, but like they were like almost.
Because one of them got me.
Yeah.
And I was extremely mad about
Really?
that.
All right.
Because
Yeah, I know
because everybody, like, there were people around us that, like, got hit with the jump scares, and like, psh, whatever. And then, like, one got me, and, like, nobody in our...
No, I
Or
know which
around
one you
us.
did because you and I got the same jump scare.
I mean, I just don't. What one was it then? If you won't like remind me.
Let Rich talk. He'll tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, man. I'm getting to it.
I'm asking you.
So, it was when her boyfriend... when Vicky's boyfriend shows up, when she walks outside, and he just, like, pops up out
Oh,
of the...
all right.
from off camera. She's like, oh, my God. I'm like,
Fair enough.
looked around, just, like, pulled my jacket a little tighter.
But no, I'm saying like
Set your jaw.
to me I just didn't notice like they used that many like that. I guess I think it's hard to say if to me that would be a jump scare. I guess yeah, sure it is. But I'm just saying like they didn't go crazy with like using them too much, and I appreciated that.
They weren't over the top jump
Yes,
scares.
exactly. Well said. So yeah, gotta give them credit on that front.
It was more so like whenever the music cut out, I was just like, "Here we go."
yeah.
And then, like sometimes like nothing would happen, and then like they get me in the following scene.
Yeah. And that's
there's
how
a lot of subversion.
and that's how to do a good
Or like they
Pacing.
wouldn't, or like I guess like it wouldn't technically be a jump scare, just like him, like when Vicky opens the door, all he does is just walk out. Like he doesn't pop out, he doesn't kick the door open. He just like starts walking out and stabbing the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, you're giving it 01
Yeah.
at the end. All right, very nice. All right, so that'll bring me to recommendation. Yes, I believe I do recommend Halloween 2018. Like we all said, it's a very good entry in the whole franchise, probably one of the better ones. In fact, they've now had time to look back and reflect upon it and integrate the characters that were created in the first two at least, and then all the crazy twists and turns the franchise took throughout. But I think this is a very nice, like I said, sort of an inheritor to what Halloween did for horror movies. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It's definitely worth a watch. It's fucking damn solid, and I'm glad that they did. They didn't fuck it up for this new year. So
I would definitely recommend this movie. If you want a solid horror movie, that's something that'll give you either chills or just something like a story to enjoy, something with substance.
For sure.
And personally, I thought this was better than the first one.
Interesting.
I'm saying it.
I think it's at least as good. I would say, of course, it's hard to hold them up together back to back, but the first one, started its own thing, and I think this one is very worthy. Like I said, entry.
I had to give the first Halloween its due. I still think it's one of my favorite horror movies ever. I don't think that this was as good as the first one, but
it is quite good.
It is very good. I think it's the second best Halloween movie that I've seen. I haven't seen all of them yet, but apparently I will eventually.
Twin Seeking number 5.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah, but I do heartily recommend it. It's I've seen a few horror movies now this year. It's my favorite this year. My favorite horror movie this year by a wide margin.
Yeah.
And yeah, check it out. It's good. It's not gonna blow the doors off the genre or anything. It's not gonna it's not inventing anything new, but it's just a solidly made horror movie and worth a watch. So I'm gonna give it a 1.
All right.
I was thinking about this last night. That I think the two movies that really sent the thing on the slasher films were Psycho and Halloween. And I think we were watching Halloween, the original Halloween after we saw this, Steve-O, Rich and I, and you could see the themes in it now. It was John Carpenter's Dark Star TV movie. I think it was his first real theatrical release. So I would say that they're hard to compare because this is probably 2 movies later. This would be the movie that Carpenter would make.
Sure.
No, I don't mean that. Yeah. And it does have the benefit of 40 years of thinking about this movie. It was a really well constructed movie. I saw a review that said it's just a good movie. It's just a good movie.
Yeah, actually, I saw that same one. I think, or little line that they put on.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly recommend it. Again, I'm not a huge slasher film fans because they're pretty much stock. This one actually had me at the edge of my seat, which is, for me, it's really hard to do.
Quite an accomplishment, sure.
Yeah. So I'm giving it a strong 1. Also, I have to say that 6 months ago, we interviewed PJ Souls, and I asked her, I have to say this because I was really excited.
PJ, thank you.
PJ, shout out to PJ. And I asked her what was going on, and she said, there's something I can't talk about. Well, when you get to the classroom, that voice you hear is PJ Soul. So I was really excited that
I did not notice that, but it's cool that you pointed out. So it is her.
See, that's why I'm a credit watcher.
Yeah, very nice. All right. Well, yes, pretty cool inclusion again as a callback.
Yeah.
All right. So I will tell you the breakdown. Rich, Chris, and Steve-O. Oh, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Actually, Rich and Chris gave it a 10. You and I, Steve-O, gave it a 9, which changes the score slightly at 9.75. I think that bumps it down to a 9.6.
9.5.
9.5, which is still damn solid. Yeah, like you said just now, Chris, it's a damn good movie. And again, certainly, a worthy successor to the... What I said, what the original 1 and possibly 2 at least did for horror and for film in general. Yeah, it's totally worth it. They didn't, cheese it out or just sort of jerk it off. Thought and care and intention was put into this film and script, and it shows. And it's a Halloween 2018, one of the most solid entries in the franchise so far.
2018.
Yep. All right. Well, that'll do it for this one. I, of course, have been Michael Myers' understudy, Scott Thurlow, and I've been here with Rich Berry,
Happy Halloween,
Stephen Amosi,
Don't get murdered,
and Chris Morgan.
The night we came home.
And we'll see you next Halloween.
What?
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or MOTS?